You know what's crazy about this week's episode is that in the trailer for this show, or one of the trailers, the worm scene with Milo kind of like sucking something out of this girl's mouth was there. And despite it being one of the biggest WTF moments in anime for me recently, I forgot it happened. So while I was kind of getting this sense of deja vu, where when they were entering this like crab, tortoise, what the hell creature were we gonna experience kind of temple here, I was like, this seems oddly familiar and I'm not sure why. Almost like I read the manga or I read the light novel and you kind of know what happens, but you're also feeling like it's a fresh experience. And then when you see her just like, it's kind of like a hentai face. Like, let's be honest here. Like, that's the best way to describe what I was seeing. And you see our boy go in for the kiss and pull this slug out of her. And the fact that like they were basically controlling their soldiers and stuff with basically keeping these things in them and they can grow like that. Like, holy shit, this show has no chill. Like, honestly, if you were to really take a step back and look at the moments leading up to that moment, you didn't see it coming unless you saw the trailer and you remember the trailer, or you just have a keen eye for prediction, and if so, you should go buy a lottery ticket. Because this episode was really fun and simple, and honestly, you could argue family friendly. You just have the two best friends that you could ask for traveling, wondering where are they actually going? And I was actually asking myself, like, where's the crab that he rides on? Like, why are they still walking? And the idea that for the most part, it was kind of like a training montage. It was basically like, if you're gonna stick together, we have 3 months for my sister, maybe a month for your grandfather mentor figure Jobby. We really need to pick up the pace, and walking's not gonna cut it. We can't drive because we'll get caught. And then to see where the crab was hiding and how it has a very distinct personality. Still love how they animate it, even though it's definitely a different animation style than what we're seeing for a majority of the show. The shading and the kind of like color palette that they use really does lend itself to blend in with this environment so well. And the idea that you have this kind of like almost Looney Tunes gag of like Milo getting thrown off, and then they kind of build up that heroic speech like, okay, I learned from my mistakes, and then you just see him flying like he was just got hit in the head with an anvil or something. It was great to see because this should be a bit of a challenge for Milo to adjust to, but at the same time, I also think he's the perfect man for the job. And I like the fact that apparently the idea that he could easily talk to a crab before he could ride said crab is something that should be unheard of, because if you're able to talk to a crab, you should be able to ride it. But the fact that he was struggling to kind of feel its feelings. But I thought it was such a great trait because we know he's a doctor. And apparently this crab hates doctors. Doesn't like them at all, which is why we end up in a kind of costume change there. But the fact that he can like so sternly like talking to a kid, you have an injury because I basically hit you too hard from that kind of assault there. Let me heal you. And it just kind of shrinks down and allows something that normally wouldn't happen. You're really getting a great sense of chemistry on this adventure. And I thought it was just going to be those two. And I was a little concerned at first because, I mean, the cliffhanger after last week, you see the temple rise up. What the hell is this creature? And I'm like, where the hell? Did we just skip over that for some reason? I thought they were just moving on. Didn't even cross my mind that maybe that cliffhanger would be the kind of like the equivalent to the end of this episode and we'd see what built up to it. But it was nice to see them ultimately reunite with this character who, this girl, she's a wild card. I mean, she's a flirt, she's an airhead, but at the same time, there is a kind heart there as well, even though she did kind of force them to buy a bunch of her goods. We go from having an overpriced package of sweets to her stealing half of their money but leaving behind a bunch of merchandise with the note saying, hey, if he ever dies, come work with me. And I'm like, holy shit, you can't make this shit up. But I like the idea of that temple scene because you really got a sense of what these three have to offer in terms of their personality. You get the kind of like flirtatiousness towards Milo because Milo is really an innocent soul who's just trying to save the world. As in you have the kind of more like hot-headedness of Bisco who just is like getting made fun of because she thinks he's a virgin. Hard to say if that's true or not, but either way, it was absolutely fantastic to see the bickery. As then you have, I love the way that it ultimately woke up because you can't sell gasoline to someone who's riding a crab, right? Like, it doesn't take fuel in that way. And the fact that basically dumping it on this creature, which is like, I forget the exact name they gave it, but it's just an even bigger crab, basically, with kind of like a shell with cannons and temples and things like that. And the fact that we ended up defeating it, thinking things would be okay, and then you just see the spot that they were going for that would allow them to probably save a shitload of time, get blown up in the process. This is not going to be an easy adventure for them, and I love the, simple comedy between the two, because for Milo, he's probably thinking, is this the type of shit you always deal with? And Bisco's like, you know what, to be honest, this is my first time fighting a temple, but hey, for your first time, you did pretty damn well. You definitely sense the chemistry is there, even though they're definitely polar opposites. Milo at the beginning of this episode, very kind of enthralled by just the wildlife and just the plants and things like that, because for a doctor, all these new things, the more you understand, the more you can save. But for Bisco, this is we don't have time to sit around and basically smell the roses. We want to get through this field before it's dark because these things attract monsters and other things. So it's great to see that they're really pushing the chemistry while also the divide between these characters, but you're getting a sense for the first real episode of them journeying together, despite the hurdles, despite the massive financial loss, and honestly, probably the trousers you're going to have to replace after seeing something just happen like that and you may be shitting your pants. They did a hell of a good job, and it will be fun because the cliffhanger in this episode is arguably just as shocking, but in a different way as last week. Giant creature waking up, holy shit. How are you going to defeat it? Well, we see in this episode. Oh my god, they're starving, they need food, they're trying to track down these kids, and the kids have a bunch of assault rifles. Okay, that's a little dangerous. Obviously, we know we can shoot arrows, launch mushrooms at them, they'll go flying, but I mean, a mushroom to a gunfight when you're kind of drained and have no food in your stomach, you're not going to be in the top fighting spirit that you're going to want to, in comparison to when Bisco kind of jumped into the city and took care of a bunch of armed guards. This show is wild. It is absolutely batshit crazy. It is as anime as they come, but it knows what it wants to be. Despite the absurdity, despite the ludicrous shit we see in every episode, it doesn't feel like it's there for random reasons. There's a reason why we're making mushrooms the main plot point of the show. There's a reason why, despite this being a scene you think straight out of a hentai, there's a reason we had that kiss scene because of the way they control their soldiers and things like that. There's a lot of thought that goes into it while just simultaneously being a fun show. If you were to just kind of sit back and relax and watch it, not really trying to dissect it and analyze it, you're going to have a good time. But if you do want to go the extra mile and see where all these careful things are being placed, it doesn't feel like something slapped together. It's a very well put together production. Love the aesthetic. One of my favorite aesthetics of this season, to be honest, just because it's different than what we typically see. It's desert, it's gritty, it's Mad Max in a lot of ways, and just how good it feels to have more anime feel like it's trying to be more retro aesthetic but in a modern twist. You love to see it. The biggest thing for me when looking for anime is, are the characters intriguing and is the main story hook appealing? And this show absolutely nails it, with everything else just being an added bonus, as if we're not getting one cherry on top of the sundae, we're getting a whole goddamn bag, and sometimes fling off those cherries because it's just holy shit, I'm loving it already, but you're giving me too much to appreciate. But that's how I'm feeling. I'm really excited about this one, and it's great to see after 4 episodes, it just feels just as good as it was at its highest, and there's still even crazier points probably left to come. But thoughts and feelings, because there's definitely a lot of possibilities with the cast. I mean, we have Jabi and the sister. Most likely that could be an interesting episode coming up, as well as just, what the hell's going to go on with the cliffhanger here. Let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.